All right, okay, girls, I am going to record. All right, now today we're going to look at the light-dependent and light-independent reactions in photosynthesis as according to the textbook in KSSM, okay, your syllabus. Now, as we learned last week, okay, there are two reactions actually in photosynthesis. So you want to jot this down. In fact, this is in the textbook. Okay, first of all, what we call the light-dependent reaction. Okay, look carefully. This word is dependent, which means that you need to have light before this reaction can take place. The light is compulsory. Okay, so it happens during the daytime. So this happens actually in the thylakoids. The thylakoids, we have seen the structure in our previous lesson. Okay, I'll show that later. And the other reaction is called light-independent reaction. So take note of the word here, light-independent. There should be a hyphen in between here, light-independent. And it happens in a different place. It happens actually in the stroma. Now, stroma is the liquid component, which is outside of the thylakoid. Okay, I'll show that in a minute in the picture. So this is independent. Okay, we go one by one. All right, we go one by one. Now, first of all, if we look at the anatomy of the chloroplast, okay, let's revise this. All right, okay. Now, you have stacks of this disc. Okay, of course, first of all, you have the outer membrane, which is here. Okay, sorry, I need to write using marker. Right, this is the outer membrane, right? And this is the inner membrane, so it's a double membrane organelle. Chloroplast is a double membrane organelle. And you will find that in the structure itself, chloroplast, you have stacks of like this, okay, which I have magnified here. So this thing is called a thylakoid. Okay, each one is a thylakoid. So when you have a stack of it, the whole stack is called a grana. So grana actually means stacks of thylakoid. And this thylakoid, there's a membrane. You will see there's a membrane. So in this membrane, there are components in the membrane which actually carry out the process, the whole mechanism of photosynthesis, which is actually the light-dependent one. Okay, let's look at how it happens. So if I want to magnify this, I'm going to magnify the membrane. Okay, see this? I magnify the membrane of the thylakoid. So when I magnify it, I'm going to see this. This entire thing that you see here, this double line here, right? Here, this double line here. Wait, all right, this one, okay? This one is actually referring to the membrane of thylakoid, which is here, all right? This is the membrane. So now, let's look at what the textbook says, okay? The textbook says, let's go one by one. Now, if you look at your textbook, you can take out a textbook, all right? I will not be showing the textbook beside, because it will be very messy if I were to move here and there, right? So your textbook is actually just beside me, all right? So you take out your textbook and let's look at the points. How do you explain the light-independent reaction which occurs in the thylakoids? All right, okay, now let's look at here. So first of all, here, there are chlorophyll molecules which are embedded in the membrane. So here is actually a photosystem, okay? PS stands for photosystem. So the actual thing is very complicated. Later on, I will show you, I will send you the link for you to see the actual YouTube video of the entire thing, but of course more complicated. Now, believe me, you do not need all this detail. You only need the details here in your textbook. Okay, so just stick to the textbook. But in order to understand it, I want you to see the whole picture. So I'm going to send you a link. Okay, in my video here, there will be a description at the bottom of the video. Later on, I'll put it in. You can see the 3 videos. I'm going to put, for example, here. These are the 3 videos, all right, which I'm going to send you through the Telegram later. All right, for those who are watching this video, you will see this in the description. The link to these 3 videos are in the description. So in order for you to understand it, that it'll be better because you want to see the whole picture. But in order for you to write questions, to answer questions, you do not need all the details. The details, whatever detail you need, is all in the textbook. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Number one, okay, look at textbook. As we go along, please look at textbook. Photosynthetic pigments on the surface of the thylakoids absorb light energy. Okay, so you see here, this is number one. All right, you will see that light, when the light shines, okay, the light shines onto the chloroplast, this light actually goes to the thylakoid membrane. So what I'm drawing here, all right, just to remind you, this is the thylakoid membrane that I have written here. Okay, this is the thylakoid membrane, and you will have all these chlorophyll molecules which are embedded in it. Okay, now this I think labeled as TS. So when this actually light is made up of photons. Photons are little particles of energy. Okay, particles of light that shoots to the thylakoid membrane when light shines. So you don't have to remember that. Also, you just remember, you can just say light. No need to say photon. So number one is done. All right, let's go to number two. Light energy excites electrons in chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is actually a molecule. When you look at molecule, you have atoms. Okay, molecule is made of atoms. So there will be electrons in the molecules. There will be electrons in the atoms. So the electrons, when it receives the light, it becomes activated. It becomes excited, stimulated by the light because it's energy. Light is energy. So when this electron receives energy, it will get more energy and is excited, so it goes to a higher level. So you will see that electron will leap. It will come out from the chlorophyll molecules. Okay, that's number two. All right, let's go to number three. The excited electrons from the chlorophyll go through a series of electron carriers. Now, in the membrane itself, there are many actually what you call electron carriers. Okay, electron carriers are a system which has the job is actually to carry electron. So this electron enters the electron carrier system. Okay, not only one. Okay, this is the electron transport train actually. If you look at the video which are in the YouTube, these are called the electron transport chain. Now, why is it a chain? Because there's more than one. Okay, there are a series of chains. Okay, there are a series of transport carriers, and that's why the whole thing, the linking is called a chain. So let's say this is the first one. So this molecule receives this electron. Okay, let's go back to the number three. The excited electrons from the chlorophyll go through a series of electron carriers. So they transport this electron from one carrier to another carrier. Let's say this is a carrier one. All right, there's another carrier here. So the energy from the electron is used to generate energy in the form of ATP. So when this happens, all right, when the electron is carried from one transport molecule to another electron carrier, what happens is ATP will be generated. So ATP will be made. So you're going to get ATP molecule here. Okay, ATP molecule. So as you go along, you can jot this down. And ATP, as I mentioned last week, is made from actually ADP plus inorganic phosphate. In order to form ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, you need adenosine diphosphate plus another phosphate group. So when you plus these two, all right, you're going to get an ATP, and this is energy rich. So this energy is temporarily stored in the ATP molecule. Okay, so the energy that is produced here, because electrons is being transported from one carrier to another carrier, this energy is being stored now in this ATP. So ATP is formed. Okay, now, so your number one, you will see ATP is being formed. Number four, look at the textbook. Okay, eventually these electrons are accepted by the last electron accepted. Okay, so now it goes to the last one. Like I said, it's a transport chain. So you have many. So at the last one, it is called a molecule which is called NADP+. Okay, now what is NADP+? Okay, before that, let's look at the finish number 4 first. The NADP+ then combines with a hydrogen ion from photolysis and forms NADPH, which is a reducing agent. Okay, so what happens here? This NADP Besides receiving an electron, it also receives hydrogen. Now, where does the hydrogen ion come from? Okay, this is water. I'm drawing a molecule of water. Water is very important in the process of photosynthesis. Okay, girls? If you do not have water, photosynthesis cannot happen. It is one of the basic requirements. Okay, I'm going to draw water molecule. This is your oxygen. Okay, and I'm going to draw your hydrogen. So this is your hydrogen. Two hydrogens here. Okay, so basically this is your water. Okay, this is your water molecule. Now, water molecule will be split actually in this reaction. So when it is split, you will get two things. You're going to get hydroxide ion. Okay, I remember I told you last week that is you use hydroxyl. Okay, because your KBSM syllabus uses hydroxyl. But in your textbook, which is KSSM, they use hydroxide. So I suggest you follow back the textbook. Okay, because whatever happens, even if Kementerian or the Lembaga Peperiksaan, they will follow back and they will refer to your textbook. So the term has to be correct according to the textbook, unless they tell us something is wrong and we'll let you know to change it. So we follow this one. This is a hydroxide ion, and this is a hydrogen ion, hydrogen HY, okay, HYDROGEN. All right, so because H2O, you have two hydrogen and two oxygen. So when you split, you're going to get one hydrogen ion and one hydroxide ion. Okay, so this one is going to go here. Your hydrogen ion is going to be received by your NADP, okay, plus electron. So actually it takes one of hydrogen atom and two electrons, okay, every time. Okay, now let's look at NADP plus. What is NADP plus? NADP plus is actually, let me look at here. This is the molecule of NADP plus. It stands for nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide, phosphate. So here, NADP. All right, so I'll write it again. NADP stands for nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide, phosphate. Now, in the exam, you do not need to write the full term because this is acceptable. Why is it positive? Why is it positive? The reason here is, look here. There, it is charged. That means it's lacking in an electron. It is not neutral. Okay, so this NADP plus is lacking an electron. So now what is the use of this? What is the use of this? Why do we need, what is the function of NADP in this process of photosynthesis? This is actually an electron carrier. Okay, electron carrier. It also carries hydrogen. So it receives two things. In the photosynthesis process, it receives two things. It actually receives two electrons and one hydrogen ion. It's a hydrogen ion carrier. So one hydrogen ion and two electrons are accepted by this. Now, why we need this? Okay, because electrons are very small. You need something to carry it. So you can more or less imagine this like a lorry, like a pickup truck. Okay, like a lorry or pickup truck. So, okay, I'm not very good at drawing this. So this is a truck, all right? A truck that carries things. This is a truck that carries things. So you think of it as a pickup truck carries electrons to deliver to another place that is needed. All right? Actually, it's going to deliver and it's going to bring it into the light-independent reaction, the second reaction. So at the moment now we understand NADP is just a molecule, a very complex one. You can see it's quite complex here. And it's going to actually carry electrons in from the transport chain, on the electron transport chain, and also bring in your hydrogen from the breaking down of the water. So you see here, this one, all right, and this one, they are going to come to your NADP. And when it receives these two things, it is going to become NADPH. H is hydrogen and it is no longer charged because it has been neutralized, right? Because you have 2 electrons come in and you have another hydrogen come in, so it is already neutral. So this is NADP. All right, now, so in the light reaction, in the light dependent reaction, which is this one, the first one, so you will see that at the end of it, there are 3 things which are produced. Oh, I haven't finished this one. Now, okay, now water. Let me go back to water first. Water is split. You will have hydrogen ion and also hydroxide ion. And this hydroxide ion later will be changed to get oxygen. All right. Okay. So now let's look at back to the textbook. Back to textbook, number 4 is done. Number 4 is done. So I mentioned the NADP plus combines with hydrogen from photolysis. So here, photolysis. All right, this is photolysis. This process is called photolysis. All right, this is photolysis. And it will form NADP. So you will see now here NADP right here, which is a reducing agent. Okay, don't forget about the reducing and oxidizing first. We will explain that in a different time. So you just understand the basic thing first. Number 5, chlorophyll pigments attract electrons from water via photolysis to become stable. Okay, now look at here. Now look back at the chlorophyll molecules. It is now lost. He has now lost electron. Am I right? You see, the electron has been released. So now it is lack of electrons. Now how do you balance it back? Okay, it is lacking electrons, so it has to be a cycle actually. So there must be something to bring back the electron, because otherwise it's losing electrons. All the chlorophylls will be losing all electrons. So it needs to have, the electron needs to come back. Now where is it going to get your electrons? Actually from here. This hydroxide ion will lose electrons. See, it's negatively charged. Negatively charged means there is electron. So it is going to come back. This electron will be received by the chlorophyll molecule. So it becomes stable. It is no longer charged. Okay, your chlorophyll molecules are no longer charged. All right, that's number 5. Now, number 6, just explaining photolysis. Photolysis is a process whereby water molecules are broken down to form hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions in the presence of light, energy, and chlorophyll. Okay, so that one you have mentioned earlier. And lastly, number 7 here, hydroxide ion. Here, hydroxide ion lose electron. Okay, so the electron goes to the chlorophyll. You can see the electron goes to the chlorophyll. So now it becomes uncharged and it will regroup itself and it forms oxygen. Okay, it forms oxygen, and this oxygen is released into the air for humans, for animals, for their respiration. And of course, they also use it themselves, the plants. Okay, so now let's look at summary here. In the end of light-dependent reaction, what are the products that are formed here? Okay, what are the products? Actually, there are 3 things that are formed here. So let me highlight this. There are 3 things. If you remember, number 1, you have ATP. Early on, you look at this. ATP is number 1. This is needed in the second reaction. So the reason here is we need to make your ATP, because without energy, your second reaction cannot take place. Right, number 2, you also have this NADPH. This is the second thing that is being formed after this reaction, okay, after the first one. And thirdly, you will also have oxygen, and this is released. This one doesn't go anywhere into your like the second reaction. Okay, so now you have 3 things. Number 1 is your ATP. Number 2 is your NADPH. And the third one is oxygen. This oxygen is released. Okay, so now, what is the use of your ATP and your NADP? This is going to go into your second reaction, which is the light independent reaction. And you need this. You need this too. You need this one, right? This two, this one, and this one will go into your the second one, which is your light independent reaction. Okay, So this is what we have so far. Okay, now if you look at the summary here, this is from your workbook. All right, if you take a look at your workbook, take a look at your workbook, which is on page, let me see, yeah, this is a summary of everything, of course in diagram form. If you look at your workbook, this is going to be on page 35. So what you need is, you need your light. Okay, first of all, this is light. All right, water, it undergoes a process called photolysis, broken down, and the result here is you are going to get oxygen, which is released. Then you have two things being produced. You see these two? This being produced. It produces ATP and NADP, H. And this one will go into the second part, which is your light independent reaction. Okay, so far this is the first part. Okay, I've explained what is in the textbook. This is needed for your SPM level. Now the video show is very complicated. That one, if you need it, you will need it if you do Form 6. If you do it, even doing A levels, you will need to go through all the details. Okay, so luckily at SPM, we do not need to go through all the details. Okay, luckily for us, for you as well. So let's look at now what happens in the second part. Now let's look at this one. This second part is called the light-independent reaction. It actually happens in the stroma. So the stroma is the liquid component inside the chloroplast. So the first part was in the thylakoid. Now you see here, this is the liquid component. Okay, let me highlight this, stroma. Okay, you see this part. This is the liquid component of the, right, this part is the liquid component. All right, everything that is surrounding the thylakoids, that is the liquid component. Now, inside this liquid component in the stroma, there is already a compound called a 5-carbon compound. 5-carbon compound means it has 5 carbon. Now, look at this. You don't need this molecule in your SPM, but I want to show you what it looks like. Okay, so you get a better understanding. How do you need to visualize that it is a compound here, and there are 5 carbon already inside. Now, where is the carbon? The carbon is actually here. There's 1 carbon here. There is another carbon here, the 3rd carbon here, the 4th carbon here, and the 5th carbon here. So there are 5 carbons. So it is written here in black. So there's 1, all right, there's another one, 2, there's 3, 4, and 5. So this is called ribulose 1,5-bis phosphate. Okay, no need to know the name. You just say 5-carbon compound. Okay, follow the textbook. The textbook says, all right, the textbook says now, look at the page 44 textbook. Light-independent reactions occurs in the stroma. Okay, number 1, 5-carbon organic compounds fix carbon dioxide gases to form 6-carbon organic compounds. Okay, now it makes sense. You have a 5 carbon here already here. The compound already has 5 carbon. So what happens now? Your carbon dioxide comes in. Okay, your carbon dioxide is, just now we haven't seen any carbon dioxide done, isn't it? We don't have any carbon dioxide in the reaction. Now you see your carbon dioxide. The role is here. The role of carbon dioxide, you can see it now. So carbon dioxide comes into the picture now. Carbon dioxide joins with your 5 carbon. So the carbon dioxide joins inside here. Okay, let me draw somewhere here, something like that. All right, carbon dioxide, you add another carbon. So you're going to produce a 6-carbon compound. Okay, makes sense, isn't it? 5 plus 1, you get 6. So I'm not going to draw the picture of this compound. It is very complicated. Okay, so now you have a 6-carbon compound. It's going to make the what they call the glucose. But how does it do that? It needs energy. It has to be broken down. This thing is going to be broken down. Okay? Now, in order to break it down, you need energy. Now, that's why we needed just now the 2 things there. Remember the 2 things? What are the 2 things that we needed? Here, ATP and NADP. That's why we need it here for the light-independent reaction, because, let me write this away when no space for that. Because we need this to break this down. Okay, so I'm going to draw the breaking down here. I'm going to add in 2 arrows here. Okay, black arrows. Let me check. Okay, so this NADPH, okay, it's going to release its energy. And once it releases the hydrogen, actually it releases the hydrogen, okay? It releases the hydrogen, so no more hydrogen. Now it becomes NADP, the one. NADP already, back to the original. So the hydrogen is released. That means hydrogen goes into this compound. Okay, hydrogen goes into this compound. So it releases the hydrogen. And at the same time, you need the ATP for that. ATP will release the energy that is bound in the third bond between the phosphate groups. You're going to get your ADP. Of course, it's going to release another ion, phosphate, inorganic phosphate. Okay, so it releases the energy. The energy goes in to break down the 6-carbon compound. And the hydrogen is released. It goes inside. So you see, you have carbon. Okay, you have oxygen. You also have hydrogen. So in other words, what you're going to form is you are going to get your glucose monomer. Okay, monomer is something like you'll have a C and the H2 and the O here, but it's not enough to make your glucose. Glucose is C6H12O6. All right, you need 6 of it. So this cycle, actually, it has to be, you need 6 of this. This cycle has to happen 6 times. Okay, there's no need for that, never mind. You need 6 of this, 6 times of this glucose monomers before you can form a C6H12O6. And that is your glucose. Okay, and that is your glucose. And after that, your glucose will be converted into starch to be stored. And also, of course, you need this glucose to be converted into lipid. All right, plants also have oil. And of course, it also needs to make protein. But for protein, you need to have an added element, which is nitrogen, to make protein. Okay, so this is the basic, this is the first product of your second reaction. So the product of the second reaction is glucose. This is the main reason why the photosynthesis is carried out, because they want to make this. So this is the product. All right, okay. So the summary now. Let's look back what happens. In the light independent reaction, there is already 5-carbon compound called ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate in the stroma. Okay, so don't need to remember the name. You just say 5-carbon compound. Okay, that's number 1 in your textbook. So it will combine with carbon dioxide. This is called a fixation. You call it, the process is called a carbon fixation. Okay, carbon dioxide fixation. You will get a 6-carbon compound, which will be broken down. How is it broken down? Okay, number 2 in your textbook. NADP and ATP from the light-dependent reaction reduces. So this reaction is a reduction. Reduction, you will see it later when you learn in your chemistry. What is this process called? Reduction and oxidation. Reduction means when it receives hydrogen, this molecule is reduced. So you will see it receives hydrogen. So this molecule, 6-carbon compound, is going to be broken down. Okay, it is reduced in order to form glucose monomers. And number 3 in your textbook, glucose monomers condensate, okay, or they condense, will rearrange and reform to form starch molecules, okay? And after that, starch granules are stored in the stroma of chloroplast. Of course, they are also converted into other substances. All right, okay? So is that clear? I hope. All right, I hope this is clear. And I will, okay, wait, before that, I just want to show you what I'm going to share with you in the video, in your diagram group. I'm going to give you the link for these 3 videos, and they are actually, the first one here is overview. Okay, overview is a little bit more complicated than what you've already seen just now, but this is good enough for you to get the whole overall picture. If you really want to know what actually happens, all right, we look at this other 2. This is for Form 6 or A levels. This is you will see a lot of terms which you have never seen before and you find difficulty remembering, but doesn't matter for SPM. Okay, you don't need it at SPM. All right, okay. So I'm going to stop the recording now. All right, 1 minute.